Okay. Oh, that's a lot louder than I thought. Might go down a little bit there. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. Welcome back. I actually didn't get my enough drink. Oh no, I got Tango. Mm. That's okay. D got D20 here. I'm just gonna roll it for kicks. What have we got? 15. Cool. I don't know why I did that. I am exhausted. I should say hello. Welcome to the stream. I should get rid of this voice meter banana thing that is essentially monitoring is in charge of controlling what the microphone does. Increases the volume, changes the volume. I don't know. What are we doing? Right. Welcome to the stream. Yesterday did a bit of drinking. Not too much, to be honest. Like I maybe went on till midnight and then came back. I was just a bit, I don't know, just whatever. It was my friend's 30th, so went out to celebrate. Pretty fun, pretty fun. Why am I talking about this? Welcome to stream. This is the stream where we basically, right now, are doing a whole fuck ton of music research. I don't know if this stream, I don't know how much longer I will be doing dedicated just streaming for, but I don't know. I'm doing it consistently for now. I'm sort of considering putting more effort into making videos and then presenting it to you. In fact, that's actually a good point. I'm going to put this into Be Right Back. Yeah, I'm going to put this to Be Right Back real quick. So I just remembered there was something I wanted to write down into my diary. So it's 8 o'clock now. Oh, what was it about? I literally just remembered it and then I forgot. Something about YouTube. Something about making videos. Maybe if I bring up my plans, it'll help me better understand. What was my plans? Goal stack. Weekly goals. Music production course. Find an online music production course, maybe? I don't know. I can't remember anymore. That's fine. If it comes back to me, then I'll come back. Let's go back to did and did. So, what is this channel about? Essentially, like I said, I'm doing music research stuff, and oh, I literally just remembered as I said that. Okay, I'm sorry. I will be organized. I swear. Okay, I said music research stuff, so I'm just gonna write it here. Fuck it. So music research stuff. Oh, the subject of a video that I want to make. Cross. Let's see. Can get in the way of. Okay. We got there in the end. Let's just paste that there. That's good. Okay. Moving on. Back to desktop. Okay. So, so yesterday, yeah, I just went out drinking. I did have a quick glimpse of the debates I got a couple of comments that I just want to say about the debates. That's why I'm calling this politics talk, because that's essentially what we're doing at this point. I'm gonna get rid of some of these other videos. I want to save that as well. Okay, let me just... I was going to move this out of the way. God damn it, I can't get myself organized right now. Let's... I'll get myself organized, I swear. I promise I'll get myself organized. Oh, do I have... Okay, I already have that. Jesus. Okay, no more distractions. No more distractions. I promise. So I did watch the political debates last night. And I can safely get rid of this now, so I don't need to worry about that. Yeah, that's all fine. I don't even have any... What's going on? Okay. There we go. I literally had this window up, but now I don't. BBC political debate summary. Yes, 7 key takeaways. Right. I actually don't know if this video...
What happened was very wrong. I think the Prime
Will this video go over each of the bits? I assume it will. Oh, this is the Texas moment. Okay, so there was a bunch of points that happened. I'm just going to go through what the BBC has done as key takeaways, and then probably add my commentary as I understood it. I did pretty much watch it as I was on the bus, and then I think I watched the rest of it after I came back on the other way from the bus when I was drunk. So I didn't really I didn't get the best information from it, but I should mention this channel will at some point go through the manifestos when the politicians finally release it. But as for now, Sunak's early exit. So this is Mordaunt joins D-Day criticism from Sunak. Sunak's early exit from the D-Day commemoration in France has been a dominant electoral story of the day ahead of the debate. I find this whole thing a bit dumb. Not because it was bad that he left. It was bad that he left just to go and do an ITV debate. Really dumb. But he clearly doesn't like hate the soldiers or anything like that. It was just really poor scheduling. Really poor scheduling on his team, which is probably, if anything, worse, because we know that he doesn't actually hate the troops or anything, right? That's let's just be honest, he doesn't. But it does show that he doesn't have a good schedule, a good scheduler. And if that's the case, then what's going to happen if there's Remembrance Day and they just say, "Oh no, sorry, I have to go because I gotta, clean my car that day." It's going to be really bad on. It's going to be really bad on Sunak to have this just at all, because no one's going to think of him as someone who disrespected the troops because he was a bad person. They're just going to think, well, he was just incompetent, which I think is, well, it's not a bigger insult. Technically, the bigger insult is the other one, but people could have at least been decisive on the issue of whether or not he was disrespectful to the troops or not. I think, really, just spin this as, look, you just don't have your scheduling down. You're clearly not a competent scheduler. Anyway, I'll read through it. A Reform's UK leader was the first to bring it up. Of course he was, because Farage, really his main competition is technically the Lib Dems. We've kind of got 3 levels now. We've got Labour and Conservatives, then it's Reform and Lib Dems, and then there's the Green Party, which I don't think they're going to bring it up here in this thing, because the Green Party didn't do a whole lot, but I'll bring it up when we get to it. I'll write that down real quick. Mention about the Green Party. I'll of course remove that after we're done with this part. So let's get back. So there's 3 levels. So there's Conservatives and Labour, and then there's Lib Dems and Reform. That's kind of the next layer, because if people aren't tempted to vote for Labour or Conservatives, then that's where they're going to be decisive on. I don't see Farage as beating Conservatives. I just don't. I don't see that happening. It'd be absolutely insane. And the votes that they do have, it's probably so spread out among different areas that it's not even worth talking about. Like, they probably won't. They'll get 1 seat because Nigel Farage is in it. But as for the other ones, I doubt it. If anything, it might be more likely that they just split the vote among Conservatives, and then Labour takes even more seats. I think that's way more likely to happen than for them to do anything. But I will say, let's say that there's a place, I don't know what's going on, but I'm constantly give me a second. I'm sorry, I'll rewrite back. Oh, we're off to a bumpy start, but it doesn't matter. I was just constantly salivating. I don't know why. I'm still kind of doing it, but it's like I'm swallowing and then I've still got more saliva in my mouth. I don't know what's going on. Sorry, really gross. Anyway, just keep swallowing. I don't know. So what was I talking about? So Nigel Farage, will probably win his seat, but he probably won't win any of the other seats. And he'll probably just split the vote of the Conservatives. Let's just get through this. So, Lib Dem Deputy Speaker Daisy Cooper said that this was politically shameful, bringing up that his grandfather, blah, 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 blah. I remember that bit. I don't know why, but it just seemed to me that that would just came out on a whim. It was a bit like, literally, it went like, okay, what do you think, Daisy Cooper? And Daisy Cooper just went, well, yeah, I think it's really, really shameful, and this is why. Here's a story. And it's like it feels like you just said that. It feels like you just said you planned this in advance, and you just wanted to go like, okay, what's the most dramatic thing that I can bring up in order to say this bit? It felt a bit too forced and a bit crappy. And this is one thing when Nigel Farage said it, he just went, yeah, it's disgraceful what he did. He did bring it up a bit randomly, I'd say as well, but at least I feel like whenever Nigel Farage does his thing, he's just a really effective speaker. I don't agree with him on anything, but I think he's a really effective speaker. Penny Mordaunt was not quite as blunt, but did say that the PM's choice to leave was completely wrong. Yeah, Penny Mordaunt was basically against Sunak on that, and it didn't look good for the Conservatives when they said that, but sadly you just have to take the L and move on, and try and move on as quickly as possible. Even Liz Truss on her worst day still recognised that we need a nuclear deterrent in this country. Interesting. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Things got very heated between Mordaunt and Rayner. Yeah, I mean, that's the main thing. So there was this moment when Clara from the Green Party, she's the co-leader, said, well, that was very dignified, wasn't it? And that was her one quip. I found that the Green Party was by far the weakest. The Green Party did not sound good at all. I like whenever it came to them answering a question, they kind of just they tried to say their bit and then they stayed quiet for the rest of it. They didn't try and butt in on anyone, and that's fine. But when the talk of climate comes along, you've got to be really passionate about it. And it just didn't seem like she was that willing to interrupt other people. And when other people interrupted her, she just stayed quiet. She got caught off guard and she was just like, oh, I don't want to say anything. And when you'd hear people like Penny Mordaunt, she would just speak over everyone. Like, not when I say speak over everyone, she wouldn't speak over everyone while she was. It would be whenever Labour talked, basically. Anyone else who talked, she just let them talk, which was effective, and I'll get to that in a bit. But whenever people tried to interrupt her, she would just keep talking over them. She would just like, okay, whatever, blah, 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 blah. They would start talking, and then she would just carry on talking louder and louder over them to try and get her point across without even acknowledging that they existed. I feel like the Green Party just got walked over, and even you get this very often with now political debates where you get your 45 seconds to speak and generally they tell you to stop speaking, but they carry on speaking for another 10 to 20 seconds. I feel like the Green Party, they were trying to say a bit. I can't remember what it was on. I think it was on like the economy or on green energy. And as soon as she said, "Okay, you need to stop," she just stopped talking. And then there was literally a bit when she said, "Oh, can I just say one more bit?" And they just went, "Okay, now to Nigel Farage." She was like, "But I really want to say something," and then Nigel Farage just spoke over her, and she stayed quiet. The Green Party just did not do anything. The Green Party just wasn't effective. I don't approve of what the Green Party said, and I don't think they said anything of substance either. So it did make me think, like, well, what's the point? I don't even know. Like, you're good, but when the Labour's saying we're going to get, I think it was net zero by 2030, that sounds unrealistic to me. It sounds really unrealistic to me. I don't know what Green Party's saying that they can get net zero by. But let's see. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. When does Green Party UK think they can reach net zero? They want net zero by 2030. When does Labour, because I swear Labour is 2030, when does Labour think they can get net zero? Yep, and they think it's 2030. So it does come across like, what's actually the point of the Green Party? I guess if you vote for the Green Party, it's going to be more pressure, more effective than the Labour Party. But that's about it. I don't know. I don't know what Yeah, it's difficult. Flynn, which I didn't know what this. Stephen Flynn. Oh, he's Scottish nationalist. There's another party. It's like played. I think that's a Welsh party of some kind. Anyway, Scottish National Party did well with their audience on the BBC radio, winning plenty of applause. He was clapped for pointing out that students in Scotland don't pay tuition fees and for his defence on immigration as being essential to public services and businesses. He also brought up Brexit, a subject that's dominated the last election and paid little attention during the debates, blah, blah, blah. But got little attention during the debates between blah, blah, blah. So Flynn accused Farage of being a snake oil salesman and Labour for silence on the issue. Responding to his attack on Brexit, Mordaunt said that UK exports were at a record high. One thing that Flynn didn't mention was the subject of Scottish independence. I did realise that, like, I don't know if the Scottish Nationalist Party are about Scottish independence anymore. I don't think that's what they really are after. I don't know why. It seems like that would be a really good issue to fight on, but it's probably because the only thing I can think of is that Scottish independence probably isn't that popular. It used to be, but it probably just isn't that popular anymore. It's probably a lot more popular to say, look, we're going to make Scotland as good as it can be, but stay within the UK for now. Because especially since Scotland, they wouldn't get back into the EU, right? They would be waiting a very long time to get back into the EU, and on their own, don't I don't see realistically them being that financially well off. Might be wrong though. I mean, maybe they would be financially well off, and they would be better off just um, leaving and investing more in their own country. But I don't see it happening. I think they probably get more funds from England and Wales, and yeah, England and Wales mostly. Farage came under the most fire from, is it Plaid or Plaid? The Greens and SNPs. Penny Mordaunt was largely ignored by Nigel Farage. I was going to mention that. Every time Nigel Farage tried to push on the Conservatives' buttons, Penny Mordaunt just ignored him, like the whole debate, which is funny because Farage wants the main competition to be second place, and he implying that Reform has a chance against the Conservatives, which I don't know, maybe they do, but I don't see it happening. I don't see it. The only reason it might happen is because Farage is so popular, especially among Conservatives. But do people really think that Reform are going to be a better party? It's difficult to say. I will say this. I don't know, is the NHS mentioned? Okay, it was mentioned, so I won't bring it up for now. But it was interesting. Same couldn't be said for the small parties. Green Party accused Reform of being cold-hearted for not wanting immigrants to come to the UK. I'll go through a couple more. Played whatever the hell. The Welsh Party said Mr. Farage was acting on his own self-interest, which, if he was acting on his own self-interest, I don't know. I don't think. It's sort of true, but I think he enjoys it, which I'll mention in a bit. Accused the veteran Brexiteer of using DT as a photo opportunity. He claimed it was a 1 versus 6 over immigration, arguing that Britain was living through a population crisis. It's sort of true. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone else in the party isn't as strong about immigration as Nigel Farage was. Like I said before, Farage is a really, really strong speaker, and he was able to I don't know. Let's see. Let's see again. So reform, cold-hearted. I'm trying to remember what I was going to say about that. I feel like a lot of it was Farage came across as the most genuine. Like when he said, I'm going to bring up the NHS thing now because I think it's the main thing. But when it came to the NHS, all of them are going to say, we're going to increase funding for the NHS, we're going to do this to the NHS, blah, blah. He just straight up said, like, look, it's not the funding that's needed. I think I think he said that we spent 7% a decade ago, and now we're spending 11%. And it is true, we spend a fuck ton on the NHS, and we don't get the results that we would typically expect. And his solution is to change the model. Now, I don't completely agree with that, but I do think that there's some things we can do to. I was going to say, I think when he says change the model, he's thinking get rid of the NHS as we know it, and he says to adopt a more French system. So you have public funding going to private health companies. Could work, maybe. And if it gets better results, then better results for a cheaper price, then it's hard to argue with it. I think that what we need is more tweaking on the public system. I think it still needs to be a public system and a public healthcare system, but maybe we need to encourage more smaller bits. So, for example, if you go for a doctor appointment, maybe if you earn over a certain income, or yeah, if you earn over a certain income, let's say 25 grand a year, you got to start, you got to pay to have a doctor's appointment. In fact, in general, I would just say you need to pay for a doctor's appointment, and then if it turns out that you need more regular doctor's appointments, then you can start getting free ones. Essentially, you need approval from the doctor to say, look, this person's going to be coming in regularly. We need to do it this way. But until then, you got to pay like a fiver or a tenner to get into the doctor appointment, and that will discourage people from going to the doctors for no reason, but it will also uh, encourage people to come in when they book it. You know, you book one and some people just miss it, and there's nothing they can really do about it, and that leads to more waiting times. So stuff like that might make the system easier. That's just one that I come up with off the top of my head, but I think that that's what we need. Farage is saying, let's just ditch it and adopt a more French or Canadian system. And that might not be a terrible idea. There's a lot of countries that use these systems. Um, as far as I know, I swear the NHS is still praised as one of the best healthcare systems in the world. So it's difficult to say. It's difficult to say what we're going to do. But Farage does come across as genuine whenever he says stuff. He did a similar thing with immigration. He said that we need to do net zero migration. So anyone who comes in and everyone who comes out, if you bring in 100 people, then you got to kick out 100 people. I don't know how you regulate that. I don't know how you make that possible. I think that's unrealistic, and it'll probably end up costing more because the fact is, when you have net positive migration, it does increase the wealth of the country overall. It might affect issues with with the individual overall, and that's a problem if you have mass immigration. But that's what it's about. I think that Farage has been a bit too harsh on the idea of immigration. I think immigration can be a good thing. You just need to make sure that people aren't coming in illegally, and I think you need a system for that. Like Conservatives claim to have a system by shipping them away to Rwanda. I think that's too expensive. Um, I think this is a problem that I actually don't have a solution for this, and I would be interested in another idea, but I don't think either of their ideas is a good idea. I should probably look into immigration at some point and actually see, is the amount of immigrants that we're getting in a bad thing? And if it is, what are the most effective ways of slowing that down? I feel like a lot of the issues with immigration at the moment comes from the fact that there's so much war happening at the moment, with Ukraine or with Israel, and probably similar extent with countries in Africa as well. And I don't know, is there many wars happening in Asia? I don't know, but I feel like that's probably the bigger issues to tackle rather than uh, trying to control immigration right in our country. It's probably better to actually be more proactive in the world and ensuring that there's more peaceful things happening, and maybe as a result, population uh, immigration will decrease. Yeah, I don't know. Just throwing that out there. Anyway, tuition fees bring back bad memories for Lib Dems. Possibly the most frank moment of the night came from the Lib Dems leader Daisy Cooper. She admitted that her party's decision to break its promise and back a rise in tuition fees when it was in a coalition with in 2010 was a sore subject for us for sure. This was a very difficult decision. This is the biggest thing that's going to harm the Lib Dems. Now, Lib Dems have a good chance of making a comeback. Right? There's a very good chance because everyone hates both Labour and Conservatives, frankly. Starmer doesn't seem that charismatic, and neither does Sunak. Neither of them seem that charismatic or interesting, and that makes Lib Dems have a very strong position to get a good handful of seats. That being said, I don't know how much Labour's going to point the finger against Lib Dems because that might make them seem legitimate in a similar way to how Conservatives aren't pointing the finger at Reform because they don't want them to seem like a legitimate party. But if I was Labour and I was to point the finger at Liberal Democrats, I would say, hey, you worked with the Conservatives in 2010. You were partly responsible for, what was it, from 2010 to 2015? So you are partly responsible for a lot of the crap that happened in the first half. You were in the coalition government when the concept of Brexit was introduced. And Brexit is a big cause of everything that's happened with everything. Now, you tried to make a comeback by saying, hey, if you vote for us in 2019, then we're going to try and make sure that we go back into the EU. But when you were in power, you worked with the Conservatives, and then when you're out of power, now you're trying to go back into Labour because you think Labour's going to win. It's like you don't seem like a party that really has any values at all. One big thing I know Lib Dems is for like marijuana as well, and I don't know why they aren't pushing that more now, especially since weed has become legal in Germany, it's become legal in Canada, it's become legal in America, and a few other European countries as well, if I remember rightly. Why aren't they pushing that? Considering it could bring billions into the country, and sure, there's the negative side effects of weed as well, but there's negative side effects for alcohol, and a lot of people might replace weed with alcohol. Some people, I doubt there's going to be a drastic issue if we was to bring in weed smoke, but maybe there is, and maybe they've got an argument for that. And if that's the case, actually, that might be a thing to look up. Actually, as well, I want to look up. I mentioned about the Green Party anyway. Immigration research at some point in the future, and what impact has weed have had on Germany and USA? In terms of addiction and productivity. So I think that's probably the biggest issue. A lot of people like to think of weed smoking as, oh, it's not addictive, so it's fine. But the fact is, people can end up smoking every day, and they end up being addicted in that way, and all other kind of crap things. So going back to what matters though, when it comes to Lib Dems, they're not talking about that right now. And I don't know why they're not. It would be such a huge thing. I don't know. I'm trying to think of how much we talked about the NHS now, but so NHS described as a national religion by Farage, but suggests they could learn some lessons from the French. I think he possibly has a good point. I hate to say it, but I think he possibly has a good point. We'll see. The problem is, Farage sounds really convincing with this idea that we could learn some lesson from the French. I want to see some actual arguments against why we shouldn't adopt a French system. In fact, maybe that's another thing we should research. How does the French not NHS, but French healthcare system compare to the UK's? Because their waiting times might be down, and their healthcare might even be more effective, but I'm going to assume that less people have access to it. That's the only thing I can assume is why it's so much cheaper and more effective is because less people have access to it. Because at the end of the day, these private companies are doing it for profit. I mean, we know about these systems of privatizing systems, like government systems, because we have our train systems, and people complain constantly about the train systems and how they fuck up and how they don't work and how they're really expensive. And that's exactly what Farage is basically proposing with this, is saying, let's privatize the train systems, not privatize the healthcare system and adopt a French system, but it's probably just going to cost more money for the average person. But maybe it won't. Maybe it will actually cost about the same, because at the end of the day, you have saved more in taxes. So all it ends up being is that you just have to pay more for your healthcare when you do have a bad health problem. But when you don't have a bad health problem, you've got more money in the bank. So I don't know. Maybe there's arguments on both sides. It's in the same way that if we did get a public transport system, we'd end up having to pay more money, and even people who don't have who don't use public transport are going to have to end up paying for public transport. But that might work out for most people. I don't know. It's difficult. Smaller parties assume Labour victory. Angela Rayner used her final 30-second statement to attack Penny Mordaunt, as Penny Mordaunt returned a compliment. Compliment? Interesting. But then the three of the remaining five politicians took it. Oh, God damn it, I can't read. But then 3 of the remaining 5 politicians took it as given that Labour have won the election. Stephen Flynn says the Tories are finished. So did Plaid Rune up Lawworth. Noshraz says Labour are going to win. The debate is for who forms the opposition in the next parliament. We're going to look in the pollings after this. I want to see what are the chances that Nigel Farage actually is able to compete with Conservatives. To some extent, the argument that the election is over is something every smaller party is going to say, as they are trying to persuade the people that they will not be wasting their time by opting for them. To some extent, that is true, but there are clear dangers for Labour in the idea that the election is a foregone conclusion. Labour will not want any of their voters to think they do not need to turn up in the polls on July 4th. That is a good point as well. It will be interesting to see if Labour is on a high right now. They're really high up in the polls, as far as I know. We'll check in a bit. But that comes with the consequence that when it actually comes to election day, even though people might approve of them, they'll be like, well, Labour's going to win, I'll just vote for Lib Dem or I'll vote for Green. And that means they could lose some really key places to especially Lib Dem. Probably not Green. I don't think Green has much of a chance here. I think Reform is well above Greens. I think Reform's about the same level as Lib Dem, but they're just not as focused in the key areas that matter. As a result, yeah, Labour could lose. Labour could lose a lot of seats just because people don't. People think, yeah, well, yeah, Labour's going to win, and that doesn't matter. But frankly, I don't think it matters. I think Labour is genuinely going to win. I don't think there's much chance that Labour isn't going to win. So let's take a look real quick at YouGov. Voting intentions. So, literally, as I was saying, Labour's on a high. Labour's on a super duper high. Hmm. Wow. Hmm. Fascinatingly, yeah, Labour's going down at the moment. Tories are about the same. Reform is a lot closer than I thought. A lot closer than I thought. You can see that Lib Dems are going up as well. Honestly, look at that. Like, this is a close matchup. There you go. They're only 6 points behind. That is a genuine worry. I think at some point, at least at this rate, it looks like Reform actually could have a chance of being the opposition. But I don't know. I don't know if that will reflect in polling. But then, a lot of the time, you find that these polling numbers aren't actually as accurate as you think. I mean, back in Brexit time, people never would have thought that Brexit was actually going to go through. I don't think Farage thought it was going to go through. But it turned out to be so close. I mean, there's a reason that Farage left as well during that election. The reason that Farage left was because he didn't think it was going to happen. So he was just like, okay, I'm going to book it then. Similar for Boris. He was pro Brexit and then he left. He did come back afterwards to try and finish it off, and I think it worked out pretty good for him. But yeah, it's crazy. Let's look at age groups. 18 to 24. I think Greens are going to be a lot higher here. Greens was really high, and then they went down. Tories are basically non-existent. In fact, let's let's remove Labour. But just want to see these two. It's neck and neck, Reform and Conservatives in the youngest age group. This is my age group. It's basically neck and neck as well. God, it's actually neck and neck everywhere but the over 65s. I would... I mean, over 65s are probably the most likely to go out and vote. So in that sense, it isn't significant. It is significant, but the fact that 50 to 64 is about neck and neck, 25 to 49, it's basically neck and neck, and 18 to 24, it's not really that significant because even though they are neck and neck, 18 to 24-year-olds don't vote. I hate to say it, most 18 to 24-year-olds just don't bother voting. I'm not going to include Plaid and SNP because they're Scotland. Like, if you're in Scotland, you're probably going to vote SNP, and if you're in Wales, then you're probably going to vote this. Well, I don't know if that's always the case, but I want to focus on England right now. Actually, no, let's include them. I don't know why I'm focusing on just England. If I remove this real quick. So Greens are probably the next popular. Although it's wild. Like, look, it went to 4% and then back up to 13%. I feel like this polling isn't accurate, but ultimately, most young people are voting Labour. Yeah, most young people voting Labour. 25 to 49s, that's where it's gone down. Funny enough. Yeah, it's super close. It's super close. Where's Lib Dems compared to... They're about neck and neck as well. Labour's gone far further down since the debates, essentially. I think that's probably because, frankly, that Labour did really crap in the debates. I'd say it, though, they did really crap in the debates. I think young people of my age group are probably thinking like, well, who else can I vote for? What third party can I vote for? Sadly, it doesn't seem like Lib Dems are going up, though. Let's get rid of Reform. They went slightly up, but not a whole lot up. What about Greens? And they just continue to go down. I don't know where are these other votes going. Seems like it's Reform. I don't. I don't know how much Reform really takes from Labour, though. I'm not convinced. This is where it's really close. Like, Jesus. This is probably the most likely to vote. This age group, probably 50 to 64. Probably most likely to vote. And frankly, it's a neck and neck race for the opposition. I feel like Conservatives can't keep ignoring that because at some point they're going to overtake and then they're going to start having a fight against Reform when they're on the back foot. And especially when they're currently in government, that's just not going to look good on them. I mean, if Conservatives, I doubt this is going to happen. But let's say that the Conservatives lost their opposition as well, so they weren't the opposition party anymore. It's going to be embarrassing for them. Like, truly not just embarrassing, but they probably will never get that spot again unless Reform does something horribly wrong. And the reason I don't think they'll get it again is because Nigel Farage, he knows what he's doing. Like, he knows when to pull back and be a bit more centrist, and I think he knows how to be a bit more centrist, and then he knows when to actually be the right person. Let's look at this compared to Lib Dems. That's the thing. I'm not convinced. Maybe popular vote wise, Reform could take over the Conservatives, but I just don't see it reflecting in the party or the polls. God, this got really, really yellow really, really quickly for me. Give me a second. I have like a setting to make it get rid of the blue light. Blue light. Blue. Night light. Turn off. Oh. Okay, there you go. Yeah, that's tough. That is tough. What's social grade? Can I search that up? What is social grade in? Oh, right, okay. So, like, what class you are. So, it's a bit weird that it's a non-working working class and then skilled working class. Am I really on the same band as, well, no, I'm C1, lower middle class. God, that sounds so shit. God, under, wait a minute, is that everything? Okay. Under lower skilled people, it looks like Reform is beating uh, the Conservatives, which is terrible. And then, yeah, it's quite a bigger difference among upper middle class and middle class groups. What about region? How is it in London, rest of South? I hope it was just going to be England. What about London? Okay, so not that popular in London, but rest of South. God, it's a lot more closer in the rest of the South. Midlands. Midlands reform is over. North. God. What was Scotland? It's a lot. I mean, of course, SNP is going to be on the same level as Labour at that point, and then Wales. To be honest, well, no, it is close. It seems like Labour might actually hold a bit more. Let's see, men and women. Men is a bit more for reform, and women not as much. Okay. I mean, if you're Conservatives, then you're obviously going to be higher. So Labour voters are really high, and then Lib Dems. Lib Dems are a bit indifferent here. What Leave? Jeez. So if you're a Leave voter, it's pretty much neck and neck if you're going to go for Reform or Conservative. But damn. Anyway, gone over that one long enough. There's one more big thing I was going to say, and I forgot it. Oh yeah, the big thing is that I kind of wonder if when it comes to polling day, this is close enough where some people might just go, fuck it, I'm going to vote for Reform. And I wouldn't. I think that's what kind of happened with Brexit. I think some people with Brexit just went, fuck it, I'm going to vote for Brexit, I'm going to vote to leave. And they just went for it. And it ended up working out. Sure, it was only a difference of 51%. That's all you need. 51%. And Nigel Farage essentially won it for everyone, for the whole country. And I think that is going to cause issues for the Conservatives. If Reform becomes the opposition party, it's going to be interesting, to say the least. Like, Nigel Farage could destroy the Conservatives if the Tories aren't careful. I think the fact is the Tories have a great representation, so that's the thing. Could you imagine though, like for example, Liz Truss saying, "You know what? I'm going to go to Reform." I could imagine that happening, and there's a lot of people that sure they hate Liz Truss for essentially fucking up the economy, A lot of people love Liz Truss. So I could imagine, her making that move, and that could tip the edge. If the Tories keep making mistakes, and they've been making so many mistakes, then it could destroy them. It really could. Um, is this a new comment? I got recommended. Question is why? I don't know. Why did you get recommended this? I don't know if this is new or not. I'm gonna refresh. Right. What else? What else? Actually, this is the first time someone's commented on my video or anything. So anyway, doesn't matter. I will probably go back to that in a bit. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to, oh yeah, immigration research, what impact weed has on those countries. I'll probably go over that at some point in the future. Why I got recommended this question is why, I don't know, maybe you have an interest in politics, maybe that's why. Or maybe, maybe you have an interest in music, that's another thing. Uh, sorry if I missed if you went onto this video and I missed the comment, but I'm in my own zone here, I guess. So yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go into history of music theory. So literally, I've done an hour of talking there. I'm probably gonna just do one paragraph on this, and then I'm gonna leave it there. And I'll probably do a longer stream tomorrow where we just focus in on this, unless a manifesto comes out for one of the parties. In fact, let me check that real quick. Music manifestos. Not music manifestos. Labour manifesto. Have they finally released their manifesto? No. Labour hasn't released a manifesto. That was one thing I wanted to mention actually real quick as well. Labour, not Labour, I think there was a point when, I think it might have been Lib Dems, they were getting pressured on a question and they were like, okay, how are you going to fund it? I think Greens actually had this as well. How are you going to fund your green policy? How are you going to fund any of these teacher policies? And they'll just keep referring to their manifestos. Well, your manifestos aren't out yet, so can you give a description of what you're going to put in your manifesto? It must be mostly done by now, because if it hasn't been mostly done, then I don't know what are you doing. You can't not have a manifesto. Lib Dem manifesto. Lib Dems don't have a manifesto. Do Reform have a manifesto? Reform don't have a manifesto. Oh wait, do Reform have a manifesto? Reform have pledged to abolish inheritance tax. Okay. Right. Thank you, Telegraph, for giving me this. Where is their manifesto? Reform policies. Yeah, they still just got a working draft. And they have a few drafts going on in the election. Okay. I don't know. I don't think Reform has any of them. Let's see. Do any parties in the UK 2024 election have manifesto? Okay, Labour definitely doesn't have a manifesto. Okay. No matter. Okay. Let's move on. Fuck me. I can't believe I just spent an hour talking about. I know. I really have an interest in politics, but Jesus. Put this into my notes. I might come back to those at some point in the future. I might not. I think really the main thing I just want to focus on is getting those manifestos talked about and written about and blah 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 blah. Fuck it, I'm just gonna burp out loud now. How do I be right back? Uh 21, 14. Think. Not think. Stuff to research. Sorry, the reason I hide my screen, by the way, is just because I'm putting this in my personal diary. I'll probably just make a notes section at some point, or maybe I should do all this research separate of the rest of my thing. I don't know, I'll see about it. Thank you though, Summit Bidhan, for being here, by the way. I don't know. I doubt they subscribed, but I'm gonna check anyway. No. Alright, that's alright. I didn't really get my opportunity to make my case. And the fact that they said I got recommended this, but the question is why, probably means that they weren't going to be interested in this content. Okay. Wrong page. Articulation. Okay, articulation is a way that the performer sound. Wait, articulation is the way the performer sounds notes. Okay, for example, staccato is the shortening of duration compared to the written note value. Legato performs the notes in a smoothly joint sequence with no separation. Okay, so it's like the difference between going dun 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 and dun dun dun. Okay, because it's the same duration each time I'm doing it, but one of them you're holding the note and the other one you're sustaining the note, and the other one you're just clicking the note. Smoothly with no separation. Articulation is often described rather than quantified. What does that mean? Articulation is often described rather than quantified. Okay, right, so how you do it doesn't necessarily matter. There's a grey area of how you do it. There's no exact duration that you're going to tap the note for, but it leaves for literally I was about to say that. Therefore, it leaves room for interpretation. leave room to interpret how to execute precisely each articulation. I guess because there's so many ways that you can do a said thing. So you could go din din, or you could go dun dun dun, something like that. I'm trying to voice it as well as I can, but that's literally the whole point. There's a grey area of exactly how you do it. So you can quantify at least some of the basics. So in the case of staccato, you do it quickly. But how you do that might require some context. I wonder how much music has been lost because we don't know exactly how they played it. You can demonstrate it as much as possible, but it might get a bit awkward. Although, at the end of the day, it probably changes with the preferences of people, and probably after some experimentation, you can probably get the basic idea of what it is anyway. And for example, staccato is often referred to as separated or detached rather than having a defined or numbered amount by which to reduce the note's duration. Violin players use a variety of techniques to perform different qualities of staccato. The manner in which the performer decides to execute a given articulation is used based on the context of the piece or phrase, but many articulation symbols are and verbal instructions depend on the instrument and the musical methods, e.g., viol, wind, classical, baroque. I don't know what's viol. Okay. There is a set of articulations that most instruments and voices perform. There is a set of articulations that most instruments and voices perform in common. They are, from long to short, legato, smooth, connected, tenuto. The reason I'm able to say legato and staccato is because I've heard them physically. I'd never heard of this one. Tenuto, pressed or played to full note duration. Okay, understandable. Marcato, accented and detached. I don't know what that means really. Staccato, separated, detached. Martelli, heavily accented or hammered. Does that just mean you're tapping it as loud as you can? I don't know. No, that can't be it because that's controlled by the dynamics. So I don't know. For example, potato. Potato is a combination of tenuto and staccato. Okay, some instruments have unique methods by which to produce sound, such as spiccato, bowed strings, spiccato, for bowed strings, where the bow bounces off the strings. Right. So there's different things. Maybe I don't know if this is the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a fancy Italian word for bending the strings. Maybe that actually might be something worth looking for. Um, is there an articulation for bending the strings on a guitar? I'm gonna just ask. I always ask ChatGPT these questions. In the fancy word, in the same way that we have staccato. Yes. Bending the strings is also known as string bending or simply bending. While this term is not as fancy as staccato, is widely recognized. Oh, okay. It's literally just called string bending. And then there's vibrato. Vibrato? Yeah, I guess so. Hammer-ons, yeah. Pull off, slide, palm muting. They don't have any fancy Italian term. That's a shame. Right. Articulation. How do we describe this? Is are different methods of how to make the note sound when you play it. For example, you could play a piano note rapidly. You can sustain hold the note until the next notes are played. By the way, I've got a really cool app that I'll show you in a bit. I think it's called it's something factory. Note Factory, something like that. Let me see. Note Factory. Oh, it's not Note Factory. I'll oh, I got it here. Sight Reading Factory. Reading Factory. Why am I doing this? There you go. This is a really cool site, which I'll go over in a bit, if I remember. um, um, since it is incredibly difficult to, how do I put this? Since it is incredibly difficult to demonstrate, to label a articulation that is an accepted gray area with articulation is described. As a result, there is a commonly accepted generic terms such as, and I'm just going to lay it out exactly how they say it, legato or smooth and connected. Tenuto, pressed or played to full noted duration. Just in case I felt like I didn't understand, just like a quarter note. Marcato accented and detached. Actually, I'm gonna label it like this because okay. And then I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a seagull outside. Martili heavily accented or hammered. Like in guitar, when you hammer on? Question. You just copy this word exactly. Didn't want all the crap next to it. Might be worth doing some reading into this at some point, but I don't plan to conduct an orchestra anytime soon. It's good to know that these terms exist. I'm just going to leave those ones. Some articulations can also be instrument specific, such as with a guitar, which is capable of string bending, when you bend the string towards the note, typically one or two semitones before. I just know that off the top of my head. So I'm going off a bit of what GPT has given me at this point. So rapid sounds with slight variation. This is vibrato. I can't really give a good example with guitar. Like you can kind of bend the neck a little bit to give a bit of a vibrato, or sometimes you have a vibrato. I don't know what it's called. It's like a stick vibrato. I was gonna say pedal, but I don't think that's the good word for it. It's like a whammy bar, maybe. Vibrato stick on guitar. I don't know what it's called. Not sure. You have the vibrato thing there. I think a good example, oddly enough, I'm just going to use Post Malone. Post Malone does a lot of vibrato when he goes. He goes like that. That's Sans from Undertale, but I guess Sans maybe is a good example of vibrato. Is Sans from Undertale when they make the voice noise a bit like vibrato? Oh, tremolo. Tremolo is more for. Would Post Malone's voice be an example of vibrato? Yeah, so your pitch kind of oscillates. Okay, that's a cool way of describing it. Anyway, I'm going to do the rest of these. Pull off you remove the and then palm muting, yeah. One of the first things I learned was with palm muting. It was, what was it called? Angus and Julia Stone, Heartbreak. And that was palm muting style song, and to this day, I don't really play that song with palm muting. I just prefer to let the strings ring. But hey, it was a good technique. When you like they say dampen the strings with the palm. Yeah. So to create music sound. Hovering your hand onto the strings to create a muted sound. I like that. Okay. Articulations are essential for delivering a articulations are incredibly important for what articulation is incredibly important for. Why do we need articulations? Incredibly important for articulations. Songs gain a lot more life when you add a variety. Without it. Actually, I think that's really what separates. Like, there's a lot of MIDI stuff right now where you just can't get a variation of articulation. And I think that's what makes music special. Songs gain a lot more life when you add a variety of articulations. That's it. It simply comes across as I'm going to give ChatGPT this and see if they like it and approve it. Hmm. I've never actually tried that. Okay, cool. It's not plagiarism, but there's a bunch of spelling mistakes and poor word choices. That's fine. But Yeah, okay, I'm pretty good with that. I am going to end the stream here because I've done that bit. We'll get these last 4 done tomorrow, I hope. Assuming there's nothing political that gets involved. Maybe I'll do a stream early in the morning. I don't know. I don't know exactly, but we'll see. See you all soon. Thank you for someone to make the first comment on this channel. Hopefully, we'll get a few more comments in the future.